Hello and welcome. I'm delighted that you've joined me today because we're going to be focusing on a topic that's pretty darn important for those of us who are over 50. Tips, techniques, and product information for dealing with sparse eyebrows. So if you have mature skin and you're over 50, 60, 70, or beyond, chances are that you've noticed a few changes in that brow area over the years. When I did an eyebrow how-to video several months ago, and by the way, I'll put a link to that video in the description box below, a number of women said that they had quite sparse brows and would really appreciate some help with this issue. If you've avoided eyebrow makeup for a while because of sparse brows, you're definitely not alone. Or perhaps you've become frustrated attempting to fill in those sparse brows. Figuring out how to get the shape just right without making your brows look drawn on, too dark, too thick, or uneven can be challenging. But with the right products and techniques, you'll soon be creating beautiful, natural-looking brows, and I hope this video will offer you the help that you need to do so. Before we launch into today's topic, I want to welcome those of you who are returning to my channel and also welcome those of you who have stopped by for the very first time. My name is Elise, and as a professional working makeup artist, my passion is helping those of us who are over 50 look on the outside how we feel on the inside. For the past 7 years, I've worked with hundreds of women who are 50 plus via in-person classes, presentations, and now makeup classes and consultations via Zoom. As one over 50 woman said recently, I'm hoping to up my game. I don't want to look frumpy. I want to bring a little brightness to my life and look at myself differently. And I'm here to say that with a few changes to the makeup techniques and products that we use, all of us over 50 can not only look our best, but we can also feel our best. So with that being said, let's jump into what we can do for sparse eyebrows so we can once again have brows that beautifully frame our eyes. It's sad but true that the simple aging of our hair follicles can lead to thinner, sparser eyebrows. And then we've also all been through the eyebrow trends of several decades, and one of those trends was, unfortunately, as most of us remember, thin eyebrows. So too much tweezing and waxing earlier in our lives can mean that hair follicles suffer trauma and can die out. Genetics can also dictate the age when we'll start to notice changes. And all of these things are certainly out of our control now, but fortunately, there are some wonderful products on the market as well as techniques that can help us bring our brows back to life. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. There is no one product or one technique that's a sparse eyebrow miracle cure for any of us. Don't we wish there was? So learning what works best for us will most likely involve some experimentation with different techniques and products, and this will take some time to experiment and practice. But I will tell you that spending some extra time to practice various techniques and try out different eyebrow products will definitely be worth it. Why? Because filling in our brows is one of the top 4 things those of us over 50 can do to look our very best. So first, let's talk eyebrow tools. Here's what we need: a small scissors, an angled brush, a spoolie, and a tweezers. Some other tools that aren't absolutely necessary but can be very helpful are eyebrow stencils, a primer pencil, and loose translucent powder. A stencil can help guide us in creating a great shape for our brows, especially if they're sparse. This particular package of stencils that I'm going to show you is a 12-piece eyebrow shaper kit, and I'll put a link to it in the description box. And here's what the stencils look like. And I likely would never have found this particular stencil kit if it weren't for another YouTube channel. So a thank you and a shout out to Shirley's Box of Chocolates. What makes this stencil product different is that there are 12 different shape stencils, so you have many eyebrow shapes from which to choose. And what makes it unique is a thin plastic band which can be inserted into each side of the stencil so it stays in place on our head. Most stencils require us to hold them in place with one of our hands while applying the eyebrow product with the other hand. So this stencil kit makes applying product to the eyebrow with a stencil much easier. The primer pencil and powder can help create a bit of a base, which helps eyebrow products adhere better to sparse brow areas. The primer pencil I'll be using is from Anastasia of Beverly Hills. It's also called ABH. And here's what the ABH brow pencil looks like. I'll also be using Laura Mercier's translucent powder. Next, let's look at the actual eyebrow products themselves. Just about every makeup line makes eyebrow products, but the two brands that carry the widest selection of eyebrow products and colors are Benefit and Anastasia of Beverly Hills. So here are our main eyebrow product options. Number one, eyebrow powders, which come in singles or duo containers. The one I'm going to show you is ABH's Eyeshadow Powder Duo. These come with a lighter and a darker shade, which is really nice, so you have some options. And by the way, you can certainly use eyeshadow that matches your brow color rather than buying a powder specifically made for eyebrows. The next product is an eyebrow pencil. There are thin pencils and there are thicker pencils. Here are examples of thin and thick pencils from Clinique. There are also pomades, which are creams. Here's one of ABH's pomades, and here's one from Maybelline. There are also brow gels, which keep brows in place. Here are a couple of different brow gels, one from Almay and one from Charlotte Tilbury. And there are tinted as well as clear brow gels available. And a newer product is an eyebrow tint pen. And here's an eyebrow tint pen from the drugstore brand Milani. Here's what these pens look like. As you can see, they have a very fine point on them. Now I have to say there's a bit of a learning curve with these pens, but the results can look beautifully natural. It's extremely important to match your eyebrow product color as closely as possible to your actual eyebrow color. Brow colors, even with the same name, can vary a lot from brand to brand. Some will have more of a warm undertone, others will have a cool or a neutral undertone. So I always suggest starting with a brow color that's one shade lighter than you think would match your brows. For instance, most people would consider my brows a medium brown color, but often a taupe shade or a soft brown shade ends up working best for my brows. I make the suggestion to go slightly lighter because a product that's too dark can end up looking very harsh and actually age us. And since we're sometimes applying quite a few strokes with a powder, a pencil, or a pomade, the brows can darken very quickly. Since some brands only have a choice of a few colors, you may have to go to a brand that has a larger selection of color options, such as Benefit or ABH, if you have trouble finding a color that matches your brows well. For example, I love Maybelline's Tattoo Studio Brow Pomade, but I've tried 3 different brown shades and none of the shades is quite right for me. So I've had to go to the more expensive Anastasia of Beverly Hills line that has more options for me. I get many questions about the best brow color to choose for those of us with gray or salt and pepper colored brows. If there's more gray than natural hair color in the brows, you may want to try a gray powder or pencil. If the brow hair is more salt and pepper, going toward the natural hair color may work best. And a taupe colored powder or pencil can often be an extremely good choice. It's helpful to try out both color options to see which feels most comfortable for you. So now, let's walk through the steps to fill in our brows. First, I'm going to see if I need to trim any brow hairs, since some brow hairs just seem to go wiry and grow longer overnight. So I'm going to brush up the brow hair with my spoolie and see if I need to do any snipping with my small scissors. And first, I'm going to go ahead and remove the eyebrow products that I currently am wearing. As you can see, I definitely have sparser eyebrows, and I know there are probably many of you out there who have even sparser eyebrows than I have, but these techniques will also work for you. So I'm going to go ahead and brush up my brow hair. I do have a little bit longer hair here, but I'm going to just take my scissors and just do a tiny, tiny trim. Okay, just snipped off a tiny little bit. Next, I want to do some tweezing if there are any brow hairs that are really outside my brow shape. I'm currently using a Clean Beauty Eyebrow Growth Serum, which has resulted in a few new brow hairs just beginning to sprout. So I'm not going to touch those up for now. And by the way, I will talk about eyebrow growth serums, tattooing, and microblading toward the end of this video. So I did check out my brows earlier this morning with my more intense magnifying mirror in my bathroom, and I think I pretty well got any brow hairs that were really obvious down in this area or up above my brows. But I want to keep all the brow hairs I can that are in this general area. For my next step, and this is definitely optional, I'm going to apply some eyebrow primer with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Pro Pencil Eyebrow Primer, along with a very light application of translucent powder. This will help the next products I apply adhere better to my brows. So here's my ABH pencil, and I'm just going to go over the brow hair. It has a little bit, tiny bit of a waxy quality to it, and that's what helps make products adhere. Then I'm going to take just a tiny bit of powder, translucent powder. This is my Laura Mercier translucent powder, and apply it. Next, I'll apply my eyebrow product, but first I'm going to put on a stencil. Now, a stencil is definitely not necessary, but it can be very helpful if we have very sparse brows. So I just wanted to demonstrate what it's like to use a stencil. Now, I could choose a stencil that's really rounded, like my natural eyebrow shape, but I've gone ahead and I've chosen one that is rounded, like my brow shape, but which also has a very slight arch to it. As you can see, the stencil has an elastic band, which I've inserted into the end of both sides of the stencil. And this will be a trick. I think I'm going to take my earrings off first because they could get caught in this. So I'm going to bring my stencil up this way, and I want to bring it up over my ears. And then I want to match it as closely as I can to my eyebrows. There's a little bit of an arch in this stencil, which is why I chose it. However, there's also a lot more area for brows in this stencil than I have. And I've actually gone ahead and I've tried applying my eyebrow products and filling in this entire area, and it turns out it's just too much for my face shape. So when I apply my product, I'm not going to go all the way up to the top of this stencil, but I'm just going to follow the line that it provides. I moved it up just a little bit, so now I'll be able to follow the line underneath. I think I have it now. I'm going to start off with the lighter shade in my Eyebrow Duo from ABH. It's always good to go lighter and build to darker. I'm just going to lightly sketch in my brows on both sides. I'm going to go slightly above my natural brow line, but I'm not going to go all the way up to where the stencil is, because that's just too much for my face shape. I probably just should have gone with the round brow outline stencil that really fit my brows perfectly. But I'm experimenting a little bit here. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the deeper color and use that to fill in. And then I'm going to run my spoolie through it just to take off any excess product and to make my brows look a little bit more natural. On the other brow, I'm going to use my e.l.f. brow pencil. This has a pencil on one end and a spoolie on the other. So I'm just going to use this to fill in. So as you can see, I removed the stencil, and before removing it, I did put the spoolie through my brows one more time to remove any excess product. I also took my super fine liner from Clinique and I outlined the top and along the bottom on both brows. And then I also used a spoolie after I did that. So here's what the final shapes look like using the powder on this side and the eyebrow pencil on this side. Let's take a closer look. This is the powder side. And this is the pencil side. And now let's take a closer look, looking straight forward. No matter what product is used, it's always important to slowly build up the shape of the brow and to start soft and light. Using the thin eyeliner on the top and bottom can create a really nice finished look. You can also make the brows look a little thicker by adding in a very small amount of a slightly darker shade. I went ahead and did a little bit of this with the eyebrow powder. Now, of course, you can use both a pencil and a powder on each eyebrow if you like. This might work especially well if your eyebrows are fairly thick in front, but are sparser in the eyebrow tail area. In this case, the powder would work well at the front of the brow, and the pencil might work best at the tail end of the brow. Next, I'm going to remove the pencil and powder from both of my brows so I can put the stencil back on and use a pomade or cream on one side, and then use the brow tint pen on the other brow. 3 companies that make especially good pomades are Anastasia Beverly Hills, Benefit with their Ka-Brow product, and also Maybelline. I didn't show you earlier what the Ka-Brow product looks like, so here it is. This is the product from Benefit, and all you do is pull off the top and you have your brush ready to go. As you can see, there's certainly a big difference with how my eyebrows looked a few moments ago after I'd used the stencils and how they look now. So I have the stencil back up and I'm going to use the cream or pomade on this brow, and then I'm going to use the pen on this brow. I'm going to be using the ABH pomade in taupe. I'm taking just a small amount and then I'm going to wipe it off in the lid so I don't get too much. And then I'm going to just lightly apply. I like to start by applying along the top edge of my brow line. What's nice about the creams or pomades, and this includes the Ka-Brow by Benefit, is that they absolutely glide on, so they're really easy to apply. You see I'm going back over it to create a little bit darker area. And then I'm going to use my spoolie. I do have an area where I have a scar on this brow, so it's a little bit harder to fill in. Now I could, if I wanted to, take a slightly deeper color, and I might do that if I were going to an event or some kind of activity, but for just a lighter, softer look, I'm using this taupe color. Now I'm going to take my Milani brow pen and I'm going to put just short hair-like strokes on the other brow. Now I'm coming at this at an odd angle. It's a little bit easier for me to do this brow with this pen, so I'm going to start here in front. And I'm going to try not to go over the same brow, because I don't want to make it too dark yet. And I'm just going to go up in the front of the brow, which is sort of the natural direction. And at the end, I'll go down because that's the natural pattern of hair growth. All right, I'm going to take the stencil off. I'm probably going to run a spoolie through these and then we'll see how they look. As you can see, even using this taupe shade, which was quite light, my brow got darker in a hurry. On this brow, the color doesn't quite match my natural brow hair color, so it looks a little strange, but look at the shape rather than the color on this brow. So let's go ahead and take a look at both brows close up. Here's the cream product from ABH, the brow pomade. And here is the Milani brow pen. Now I also have a NYX brow pen, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the Milani with this and see if this color is a little bit better. Oh, I think it is. This Milani pen has more of a red-brown undertone in soft brown, and the NYX pen, which I used afterwards, was ash brown, which is a cooler tone, which worked better with my brow color. So let's take a closer look after I went over the Milani brow pen with the NYX brow pen, which is a color that matched my eyebrow a little bit better. And by the way, it's always a good idea to store pomades for some reason with the cap down. That supposedly keeps them from drying out as quickly. Also, if they do start to dry out, and this ABH formula has a tendency to do that, you can simply add a drop of saline solution to get it back to its original form. And here's one other product option as well. Depending on the brand, the applicator, and the amount of color payoff, it's sometimes possible to find a tinted eyebrow gel that we can run through our brows to create a really nice soft look. For instance, if I just wanted to fill in my brows lightly and quickly, I'll sometimes just use Charlotte Tilbury's Legendary Eyes Brow Gel. Unfortunately, I don't have enough product left in this product right now to demonstrate this, but I really like the soft, natural look that I can get using just this brow gel. Let me show you what it looks like at least. As you can see, the Charlotte Tilbury product has a very tiny brush, and it's just the right color for my eyebrows. It's in a color called Supermodel, and it's the darkest of all the shades, oddly enough. But I'm not able to get this same kind of look with other brow gels that I've tried. So sometimes, as I talked about earlier, it's just necessary to experiment a bit. With very sparse brow hair or hardly any brow tail, just using a gel might not work, but it can work for some of us. And if we have very wiry brow hairs, we may want to use a brow gel on top of another product to keep any wiry brow hairs in place. And if you have brow hairs that are really wiry and difficult to keep in place, Benefit has a great product called 24-Hour Brow Setter Clear Eyebrow Gel, which really keeps brow hair in place. And there are 3 other products that I want to also let you know about. Several companies make brow products that have fibers in them, which can help create a thicker looking brow. The most well-known one is from Benefit, and it's called Gimme Brow. There's also a product called Wunderbrow, which is a liquid with a brush. It's a longer lasting brow product that can stay in place for up to 3 days. Here's what the Wunderbrow looks like. And I would definitely recommend not applying it with the brush because there's a tendency to get way too much on. I would simply take a separate angled brush and take a little bit of the product off of the brush that's used when this product is opened up. As you can see, this brush is pretty thick and it tends to apply too much product. And if you have extremely sparse brows and are worried about brow products smudging off, there's a product that many people with alopecia use that's a sealant lacquer that can be used over the brow product to keep it in place. It's called Bald Girls Do Lunch Sealant Lacquer. Now let's take a few minutes to talk about eyebrow growth serums, eyebrow tinting, tattooing, and microblading. There are many eyebrow growth serum options in a wide range of prices on the market, and many of them really do work. I would recommend reading reviews to get a sense of what the pros and cons of each product might be. As I've mentioned in a previous video, I tried one that I absolutely loved, and it really worked. However, I have very sensitive eyes and have had 3 eye surgeries, so I'm very cautious about what I use around my eyes. So when blood vessels started breaking in my eyes after I started using the growth serum, I did stop using it. Now, it may have been just a coincidence that this happened, or it may just be because I have very sensitive eyes, because I do know other people who've had no issues whatsoever with that eyebrow growth serum. Right now, I'm trying out a Clean Beauty Company eye growth serum to see how it works. It's helped a little, but I definitely haven't had the results that I had with the previous eyebrow growth serum. I would always recommend checking with your eye doctor and thoroughly reading product reviews before purchasing any eyebrow growth serum product. tinting your brows or having them tinted at a hair salon is another option. If you decide to do it yourself, a product that's worked really well for many people is, believe it or not, a product called Just for Men Beard Dye. In the many makeup classes I've taught over the past years, a number of women have kindly shared their experiences with eyebrow tattooing or microblading. Many have had absolutely great experiences, others not so much. And so much depends on the experience and qualifications of the person who's doing the tattooing or microblading. So definitely get recommendations and talk with anyone you know who's had either procedure done before you go ahead with either tattooing or microblading. Here are just a few of the things to be aware of with tattooing and microblading. Very thin, brittle skin may not heal well from either process, so it is important to go to a licensed professional to get an evaluation. Tattooing is done with an ink which is permanent, and it's applied either by hand or machine and involves insertion of needles into the skin. However, be aware that the ink does fade over time and can often develop a blue-green tint after a few years, so the process may need to be repeated after 5 or so years. Microblading involves the use of needles that make way for pigment to be placed in the skin. And when the fine cuts of the needles heal, a crisp, thin line is formed, which mimics the shape and texture of natural eyebrows. Since a lot of pigment can't be put into the skin at one time during this process, microblading lasts anywhere from 6 to 18 months. So it does need to be repeated quite often. As I mentioned earlier, I would always check with people who have had the procedure done to find out what their experience has been, and then carefully check out the qualifications of the person that you're considering going to. Okay, we have certainly covered a lot of ground today with this topic, and I do hope you found this video helpful. And if so, please give it a thumbs up. And I also hope you'll let all of us know in the comments section below what your favorite brow products are. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you stay happy and healthy and have an absolutely fabulous rest of your day. Take care.